welcome to a cup of tea with Stephen, and happy Pride Month. It's been quite a month, hasn't it? You know, there's been no marches or anything around, and well, so far, I know there's a few going to be going on, but generally the London one's off. But all over London, you see the flag being flown, and it's a really great feeling and atmosphere. We're moving forward. I was just in the store, and everywhere we went, the flag was there. And it was, you know, it was great because not so long ago we couldn't do that. But let's equally forget, homophobia, discrimination is everywhere. Way forward, education in the schools with diversity role models, going and educate them. It's a really good idea. Everywhere we go, we need still to be pointing out that we sometimes don't have equal rights and not treated correctly. As a community, we need to come together. And I've been at things where people have walked out on a speaker because there are different politics they don't agree with. This isn't helping. Let's all come together. Let's not have prejudice among our own people. Even now in EU countries such as Poland and Hungary, laws are being passed against LGBT people. And in other countries, the death penalty is given for gay people. Let's not forget that so long ago in our country, being gay was outlawed and a criminal offence. The release of Alan Turning's £50 note this week has been a landmark, and the LGBT community has celebrated. And others all over are thrilled about it. But let's not forget, just back in the 50s, this man was chemically castrated by our government. His crime being gay, and he took his life. This is a man that saved our country. And this is what we did to him. Today's guest has made history himself. He's the first openly gay Conservative peer in the House of Lords. I'd like to welcome someone I really admire. He's won awards from the gay community, Lord Guy Black. Hello, how are you today?
I'm extremely well and delighted to see you. I'm very happy to be here.
Now, I'm going to ask you, do I call you Lord Black or do I call you Guy?
I answer to many things, but I'd love it if you'd call me Guy.
Oh, so good. We're so pleased to have you. And it's really great to have. Listen, it's Pride Month. And of course, there's no march in London. What does Pride mean to you?
Well, can I say happy Pride Month to you, Stephen, and indeed to everybody else who's listening. And gosh, that's a good question, actually, because Pride just means so many things, doesn't it? I mean, I think for me, it means pride, that we can all be ourselves. Pride, I think, at the speed of change in our society for LGBT QI plus people, which has just taken place in only really a little over 20 years. Pride in our city. I'm here in London, but many other cities have pride events, and we're all beacons of diversity and liberalism and tolerance. But I also think for me, Pride Month should also mean what we ought not to be proud of. We ought not to be proud of some of the things that have happened in the past. You know, we're talking at a time when the £50 Alan Turing note has just come out, and that reminds us of the horrors that were wrought in our own country. And we still have, across the world, many countries where being gay is criminalized, many in the Commonwealth, and we shouldn't be proud of that. And it reminds me, therefore, that when we take pride in things, we should also remember how much there is still to do.
There's a lot of infighting among the LGBT community themselves, which is for me a worry, Guy, and particularly when the word conservative flashes up. I've been at things where people have walked out and the conservative LGBT speaker has got up. I mean, you know, basically, Mrs. Thatcher's Section 28 has been an issue. What would you say to people how the Conservative Party have changed over the years towards LGBT people?
So I'm not going to defend a lot of the things that happened in the past. You know, I was a young gay man growing up in the 1980s. And we lived in the shadow of great intolerance. we lived in the shadow as well of HIV and AIDS, and it was a very difficult time for very many people. But I do genuinely think that the Conservative Party has changed absolutely totally since then. And of course, there is a great irony, isn't there, that the party that brought in Section 28 was also the party that pioneered gay marriage through, and I was proud to play a part in that. So look, I understand people still have strong feelings about the past, but I do think things have changed, and certainly, you know, I am entirely comfortable as a Tory, regardless of my sexuality. And so, yes, I don't think anyone should ever walk out of meetings. In any case, it's always best to listen to what people have got to say.
So listen, you got married in 2015 to the wonderful Mark Boland. And how's lockdown been with Mark? Has it strengthened your marriage? What would you say to people with gay marriage?
So I mean, I know that lockdown has been tough for so many people. It's affected us all in very many different ways. I suspect a lot of us know people who've either died or who've been very ill. I certainly know people who've been very ill and now have long COVID as a result of all this. But I think, you know, I'm an optimistic figure. I think you have to take some comfort from these things. And the benefit for me from lockdown is that I've seen a lot more of Mark than I have in previous years, because he traveled so much. He was often away 2-3 days a week. And of course, he's not been on an aeroplane for 15 months now. So that's been terrific for me to actually be able to see a lot more of him.
Now, listen, my friend has come back from Thailand, and he's brought his dog, which is gorgeous. It's called Duchess. And having nightmares getting him into a flat because he's fine. They don't want the dog. He's renting at the moment. And I understand you're actively trying to change laws or trying to make it easier for people to rent with pets.
Yeah, because I think it's very tough for many people. I mean, I got interested in this partly because of COVID, I think, because it's underlined to us how important pets are. You know, pets are important for so many people. They're important for old people who are often lonely. They're important for young people who should learn how to care for animals. There is a lot of evidence about the impact of pets on mental health and well-being. So they really are, they perform a really important societal function. But there are a large number of people who can't, like your friend, who can't get them into private rented accommodation. In a short debate in the House of Lords recently, I quoted figures from Cats Protection that show that there are 1 million people who would like to have a cat in their flat or home or whatever it might be, but can't because of the restrictions on it. I mean, there is progress. The government's introduced a model tenancy agreement, which includes the right to have a pet in it, but it's a voluntary thing. And the point of the exchange that I had in Parliament with the minister who's responsible is you need to do much more to get people to take up this agreement so that people can have the joy and the wonder and the benefit of owning a pet. So we're going to keep up the fight, and I'd like to make sure that in the years to come we do make progress in this area, because it is so important to the quality of life for so many people.
Listen, what people don't know about you is you're a huge soap fan, like I am. So what is your favourite soap and your favourite soap actors?
So I am a huge Tory fan, and I've barely missed an episode in, I think now, 44 years. And I can tell you this because I bumped into the character, the actress who plays Tracy Barlow somewhere in London a couple of months, well, actually it was before lockdown, so it's probably a couple of years ago now, and said, I can trace back the first episode of Coronation Street I watched to you being born. And Stephen, you'll probably remember Deirdre had quite a rough time when Tracy was born. And it was that episode. My parents had tuned in for some reason. I can't remember why. Which how people always get hooked into soaps. We had to watch the next one to find out what happened to Deirdre. And I've missed barely an episode since then. And I suppose the thing I've always loved about Corrie has been the big, strong female characters. You know, when I first started watching it, Annie Walker was there, and the wonderful Elsie Tanner and Ina Sharples, and that's been carried on over the years. Through Deirdre up now to I think what Jane Danson has been doing as Leanne in these various plots recently has been terrific. And Corrie has really always been about those big female characters, and that's why I love it.
The newspaper industry which you were involved with has changed so much. What do you think is going to happen to the tabloids over the next few years?
So the newspaper industry has changed, but so have many other industries which have been impacted by digital. You know, I think, funnily enough, newspapers were the first to feel the great force of the digital revolution, and probably felt it most severely and seriously over the years. But it's been a great spur to innovation, and a lot of newspapers, like the one I work for, have changed fundamentally to make ourselves digital online. We have now hundreds of thousands of subscribers online, which is fantastic. We still got people who buy the paper. You know, it's a sort of mixed economy of the way people want to get their news. I think one thing that the COVID crisis has taught us is that people want to turn to trusted forms of journalism to get their news and to get authoritative news, because there is a lot of rubbish which is out there on the internet, and people really genuinely want to know what's going on. So I think there's almost, in a way, being a rebirth of journalism as a result of all this.
London's changing all the time. There's a bike lane and Park Lane now that everyone's complaining about. If you were mayor of London, what would you change, or what would you do, or improve on, we could even say?
So I mean, I love London. I've lived in London for more than 30 years now, in the People's Republic of Islington. And I'm not sure there's much I'd really want to change about London. And you'll have to forgive me, but I'm going to give you a glib answer here. The one thing I think I'd probably want to change, but no mayor could, is the weather. And just looking at what's been happening outside over the course of the last 2 weeks, it's been deeply miserable. But can you imagine what London would be like with our, you know, all our fantastic arts and theatres and music venues, our great restaurants, all these things, and you put that with the weather of Rome or Barcelona or Madrid or something, it would just be amazing. But I think that's beyond the capacity of our current mayor, and it would certainly be beyond my capacity in his position.
Listen, you're the first openly gay peer we've had. A lot of people, you know, even your age or whatever, still not out, who want to come out. What would you say to someone that's scared to be themselves, really? What advice would you give them?
So I know that, and I said earlier, a lot of things have changed over the course of the last 25 years. But I know for many young people, it can still be very tough. And I think it can be very scary. And I think I say two things. One is, you know, take strength from others. A lot of us have been through that, and you do get through it. And you get through it partly because of the love of your parents and friends. And so the second point I'd make is, you know, talk to people who you think will understand. It may just be a best friend, whatever it might be. It might be a parent. It might be actually a teacher at school, and
Yes.
just begin that process of coming to terms with it all. And once you've done that with 2 or 3 people, it will become a lot easier. But I'm under no misapprehension about how difficult it is for some people. But that's what I'd say to them. You know, have strength, talk to people, and you'll get through it. And your life will be immeasurably changed as a result, because you can be who you are.
You're talking about schools. I'm a diversity role model, and I go into schools and talk about being gay and my journey and things. Is this something you would actively like, be involved with, or you approve of?
Yes, I think it's fantastic what you do, Stephen. I've tried to do a bit of it myself. There's a charity called Just Like Us, which works a bit in this space too. And by seeing what you've done, what diversity role models have done, and so forth, it inspired me actually to go back to my own old school and talk about being an openly gay man. First in politics and then in the media. It's very funny, actually. There was a teacher, the teacher who taught me many years ago was still at the school and asked me to come and do this. And I was a bit sort of slightly unsure about it, because it was my old school and it felt just a bit strange. And I said, are you sure you want me to talk to your sixth formers about it and so forth? And he said, I think you'll find the school's changed somewhat, and that actually when you tell them you're a gay man, they'll just be very bored by it.
Yeah.
And actually he was right, but I was still pleased to be able to do that. But you know, that's a school down here in Essex, and you know, it was an easy thing to do. As I said earlier, I'm aware that there are some schools where they make much more difficult. So that's, I think, what you do with the diversity role models is really important, because it could be the one conversation that a young gay person had with somebody that just set them on their life's journey.
What's your idea of a perfect night out on a lighter side?
Oh, crikey, the perfect night out. So I think my perfect night out would begin with some cocktails. I have a partiality to vodka martini. I'd then go to a concert. I'm a big music buff. I love classical music. I'd want to go to a concert of my favorite composer, which is Schubert. And then I think I'd want to go to dinner at my favorite restaurant, which is the Po restaurant in Eagle Street in London, which you probably know well. So I think that's pretty much my definition of a perfect night out. But just going back to an earlier conversation, in the sunshine, please.
If you wrote your autobiography, what would you call it?
Very many years ago, I read a novel which you might have come across called Being There. It was made into a film, a great film with Peter Sellers and the wonderful Shirley MacLaine. It actually was probably the last film that Peter Sellers made. And it was about a character called Chauncey Gardiner, who made his way through politics because he just happened to be in the right place at the right time and met the right people. And I don't do the gardening element, but I sort of identify a bit with that, because I've been incredibly lucky in my life to have drawn strength from people I've met during the course of my career, often by chance, who've then gone on to become very important in it. And I sort of think, you know, I've often been in the right place at the right time. So if I'd be allowed to call my autobiography Being There, I think I'd probably do that, because I could chart through that the people who've been really important to me and say to them, thank you for the part you've played in my life.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Thanking the people on the way up is an important thing. You know, guys, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on. Thank you so much. And I'm sure it's been inspirational for a lot of people. Thanks ever so much.
Well, look, thank you very much for having me on. I was trying to remember where you and I first met. I think it was at a soap awards. Would that be right?
We met at Hilary, the wonderful Hilary Bonner's book launch.
It was a book launch, that's it, and then subsequently at a soap awards. Anyway, it's a pleasure to have been back to see you, and as I say, thank you for having me on.